Hello, and welcome to our channel, MarshStream, your public performance broadcast platform. Please make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel. You can also donate to our tip jar and support the arts and artists of MarshStream by clicking the link below in the description. Check out our website, themarsh.org, for all upcoming live performances. Now, enjoy the show.
Let's welcome Mr. Darryl Van Leer. Hi, Darryl.
Hey, how you doing?
Good, good. So where are you, Darryl? Where are you?
I'm in Nashville, Tennessee. Is where I'm at right now.
And what brought you to Nashville, Tennessee?
Oh, that's a good question. I came actually from my college, which is Western Kentucky University, to Nashville, and I started working in the graphic arts industry because it was my study in college. Plus, I wanted to be close to the arts as much as possible, and I knew, that was just a close trip from Bowling Green, Kentucky to Nashville, Tennessee. So I wanted to be close to the arts as well.
Were you born in Kentucky?
I was born in a wonderful little town called Madisonville, Kentucky is my
Is that
home.
close to Lexington?
Not really. No, it's from Nashville. It's about 90 miles, but Lexington is a little distance. It's about, I think, about 3 hours from Madisonville, Kentucky. Lexington is.
Wow. And we heard in your bio that you started being a musician at 11 years old. What did you do at 11?
Well, there was a piano at my house, and being that my family was very much in the arts, my mother was a gospel soloist and a piano player, and my daddy was a minister. Then I had one brother that's a trained actor from college, and then I had another brother that was a musician as well. So with all of that art around me, I felt it was probably a good idea that I mess with the piano a little bit. So that's how that was.
So you started playing the piano at 11.
I did. I started taking piano lessons, and I did that for about 4 years until the piano teacher took a ruler and hit my hands. Then I stopped. I stopped for a while, and I picked it up later on.
I had an organ teacher, and he used to slap me in the shoulder, and that was the end of him. I mean, those little things were such an easy excuse to get rid of a teacher, weren't they?
I know, but I wasn't doing right. I wasn't studying like I was supposed to. And that lady hit my hand with that ruler, and I looked at her like, and that was the last time she saw me.
Did you act in plays? I mean, we're going way back. You have such a big career, but did you start to act in plays, and were they
I
musicals?
did. My first play in it might have been first or second grade was Three Blind Mice, and I was one of the mice, and then sixth grade it was Peter the Pied Piper, and A Raisin in the Sun in high school, and then I went on to college and I did some theater there in college as well.
Besides graphic arts.
Oh yeah, because I really wasn't for sure on as planning out my future. I said, well, I don't think I want to be a struggling entertainer or actor or musician or whichever. I didn't want to be that. So I wanted to make sure I had something secure, as a career that I could make sure I could pay my bills and so forth. So my main thing was graphic arts, and I dabbled in the theater and the arts on the side while I was in college.
Do you still do graphic arts?
A little bit, just to kind of like to promote some of my own projects, but I pretty much turned that over to my kids, though, the graphic arts. Yeah.
So how many kids do you have? I know you have what are they doing? Are they all supporting your career right now?
They are, and they're kind of like doing their own thing as well. My son, he's the real graphic artist at the moment, and my daughter, She's a musician and she works in the school system as well. But they both have joined together to launch a studio themselves, which they're promoting their artwork and producing videos as well, music videos. My son and daughter. My son is 25 and my daughter is she's 29.
No way, you don't look a day over 32.
See, there you go. There you go. No, I'm a lot older than that.
But luckily you don't look it. Although
Well, thank you.
looking old is cool. Looking
Thank
old is cool. So you've done a lot of solo performances, which the Marsh is all about solo performances. Did you, and you also have had quite a TV and film career. Did they come together? Did you do one first and then the other? How did this all happen for you?
The theater is what I grabbed a hold to at first because I've always been one that wanted to try to control my destiny. And by the one-man shows, producing those, I didn't have to wait on the phone calls for an audition or a film or something like that. I could always work to produce my own productions. Um, After I did that for so long, then I started getting the attention of certain people and casting directors and so forth like that, and spent a lot of time in Los Angeles. But I've always have been grounded in the theater aspect, and I spent a lot of time on bringing to the stage icons of history, to inspire people, and I've pretty much found a home there. And I made that transition into the other forms of art that we have presented to the world, and that's like music as well. So I've been able to keep myself going by producing these one-man shows.
When did you produce your first one-man show and what was it?
My very first full-length one-man show. Now I had scenes. I did pieces on Dr. King for a long time, and pieces on Frederick Douglass. But the first full one-man show was on Frederick Douglass, entitled "My Life in Bondage." That was my first 1 hour production, and I think it was like 19. I'm going to tell my age now. I think it was like 92 or something like that when I produced my very first show, and it premiered in Allegheny County, Pennsylvania, at the college there in Pennsylvania. Is when it first produced it. Yeah.
Tell me what it was like to develop that show. What did you do? Did you do research? How did you do it?
Well, this is what it was. The college requested that show. Allegheny Community College requested a piece on Frederick Douglass because they knew that I had been doing these pieces on Dr. King. So what it was, I picked up his autobiography, and the book was written in such a form that it drew me into it. And I created certain aspects of that show to give the audience a journey. Was it difficult? It was really difficult. It was really difficult, but it taught me a lot. I mean, it was truly, truly, truly the school of hard knocks for me to develop that piece. And it forced me to be several people, interchanging characters to take the audience on a journey. It took me about 1.5 years to put that one together.
So there was the research, there was the writing, there was the development of the performance, stuff like that. You want to talk a
Right,
little?
right. It was all of that. It was first developing the script. Developing the script where the audience, where we had peaks and valleys and obstacles, developing the script. Then you have costuming that had to be developed. Then it's the blocking, you know, my location on stage from here to here to take the audience on its journey. In addition to that, then it's the soundtrack that help take the audience, you know, on the journey. I truly, truly believe in helping the audience out as much as possible because I think it's asking the audience a lot to stare at one person for an hour and a half. So I try to add as much as possible to help them on the journey, from lights, from sound to costuming, all of that to help them take this on a journey. So all of those steps had to be taken and to produce to bring the piece to stage. And that was my first one. And I used those same tools and techniques in all the other pieces that I developed after that.
And remind me, did you say that was in 1992? What year was it
I,
again?
I kind of like let that slip. Yeah.
So the first time you did it, was it the very first time you did it was in front of the Allegheny College community?
Absolutely.
So straight out of the, what do they call it in horse racing? Straight out of the box.
Gate, straight out of the gate.
Gate. That's the word. So straight
Yeah,
out.
it was straight out of the gate. And what was so difficult about that piece was the dialogue, the dialect that was spoken in the 1800s. It was very difficult for me to memorize it, so I had to use special tools to actually memorize the script. For example, I may here recount a circumstance which was deeply impressed upon my memory. You know, sentences like that was very difficult for me to maintain. So I had to use certain techniques to actually get those words in my mind to deliver them comfortably.
Well, tell us. Give us a sample of a technique so we can use it. I mean, this is a solo performance community. We could probably
Okay.
use the help of your technique.
Okay, I'm gonna tell you, the greatest. There's a couple of techniques that I would use. The one that has helped me more than anything, and I've delivered this. I've spoken to college students as I performed and traveled. I've performed at probably over 300 some universities, and this is one of the techniques that I've always told people. I would take the script and I would read it onto, well, it used to be a cassette player, but those don't exist. I would record my voice on a device and I would let it play in my mind, listening to it days on end. Once the script is written, then I would record the script on a device. I'd listen to it when I'm going to bed. I put earplugs on it over and over and over. So that time, when I'm actually ready to hardcore memorize this document, the script, it's already in my mind. It's almost like a story that I've heard before, and it makes it much, much, much easier. That's one of the things. That's probably the greatest tool that I've had in producing pieces is doing that. The other thing that I would do to get over fright, I would make sure that I would have the opportunity to look at the theater at least once and see how it looks. And then I would place myself in a room and visualize the audience sitting out there, and I would rehearse my lines in front of it. So therefore, when I stepped into the theater, it's like I've already been there before. So those are a couple of things that I've used to help me in developing.
That sounds good. Okay, so you said you've did it over 300 times since. So I would think that first time you did it was not the same show did 300 times later. Tell me what happened in terms of the development over time.
Well, I'm saying I've performed at that many universities and performing arts center. Not exactly just that one show, but just in my span.
Okay. But just on that show, how did it change? I mean, I don't know if you can tell me how many times you've performed it, but what were the changes and the things that developed over time as you continue to develop that show from that first time out of the gate?
Well, of course, as I continued to produce this production, I became more and more um, engulfed into the character, or me and the character became as one. So I became even much more comfortable with it. Um, and that's the thing. Whenever you're developing a character, you have to find out where in that character you can find yourself in it. How can you relate to it? How can you and that person become one? And when that truly happens, you're not acting anymore. You're actually being that person. So therefore, if I'm so much into the piece on Frederick Douglass, the where I found Darryl Van Leer in it as well, any mistake that I might make, it doesn't make any difference because it's the character and it's what he is saying, and there's no mistake in it. So if I make a mistake as Frederick Douglass, so what? It's Frederick Douglass.
Because you're so, since Darryl and Frederick are one and the same in total presence. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. And you know, there's things you would have to do. There's one piece that I also do on Nat Turner. I would have to spend time in the woods because there's a scene about him in the woods. I would have to go out in the woods and put myself in that situation so it would become real. And the same thing with Frederick Douglass. In his escape, I would have to place myself in those same settings so that it would be very real to me.
That is amazing, you know, and it's like amazing to watch that kind of trajectory. So tell me a little bit. I think you're gonna, in a few minutes we'll have you're gonna perform some excerpts from some of your plays, and I know one of them is from the Martin Luther King Jr., right? That's one of the excerpts. So tell us a little bit about that how that got developed. It sounds like you did some of that beforehand, but then you did a full-length show of it. Tell us a little bit about that performance.
I or the Dr. King piece is probably, I've done that one probably more than any of the other pieces. I always sought out pieces to inspire, and there's nothing more inspiring to me than the pieces on Dr. King. And actually, the piece that I'm going to do tonight, it's entitled Early Days. Now, I know we're all quite familiar with I Have a Dream, but he had said so much more that I think people seem to overlook it and don't get a chance to hear his other great words. But this piece that I'm doing tonight, I chose it because it shows him as truly being a human being. It shows him as being a father. It shows him as being a husband. And more than anything, it shows him being afraid. It shows him as the human being, not the political person that, you know, we've always seen standing in front of, you know, thousands of people on the March on Washington, but just him in the church delivering a sermon and talking about how he was afraid. So that's the piece that I chose tonight to do on Dr. King. The one-man show that it comes from is called The Norm of Greatness, The Life of Dr. King. The one-man show on Dr. King, it shows the humor inside of Dr. King. It shows the camaraderie with him and his colleagues. It shows all of those different aspects, and it shows so many more of his addresses that people don't know. The Drum Major Instinct, I've seen The Promised Land, in addition to I Have a Dream, along with Early Days. So that's the piece that I chose this evening.
Well, would you like to do it now?
Okay, we can get ready to do it. So as I put on this costume, I would like for everybody that's watching. Also, I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in this evening. But I would like for everybody to visualize yourself sitting out front in the congregation, listening to Dr. King. So if somebody want to say amen or hallelujah, any of those things, that would be fine too. One day, after finishing school, I was called to a little church down in Montgomery, Alabama. Started preaching there. Things were going well in that church. It's a marvelous experience. Then one day, it was a year later, a lady by the name of Rosa Parks decided that she wasn't going to take it any longer. She stayed on the bus seat. Well, you may not remember it now because it's way back now, several years ago. It was the beginning of a movement. 50,000 Black men and women refused absolutely to ride the city buses. We walked together for 381 days. That's when we got to learning to know. Negroes had to learn to stick together. We stuck together. We sent out the call. No Negroes rode the buses. Is one of the most amazing things I've ever seen in my life. The people of Montgomery asked me to serve as spokesperson. Being the president of the new organization, the Montgomery Improvement Association, became in a being to lead the boycott. Couldn't say no. So we started our struggle together. The first few days, everything was going well, but 10 or 15 days later, when the white people of Montgomery knew that we meant business, they started doing some nasty things. They started making nasty telephone calls. Got to the point that some days more than 40 telephone calls would come in threatening my life, the life of my children, and the life of my family. And I took it in a strong manner at first, but one night late, it was around midnight. You know that you can have some strange experiences at midnight. Been out all night with the steering committee. Just got in, and immediately the telephone started to ring. And I picked it up. And on the other end was an ugly voice. That voice said to me in substance, "Boy, we're tired of you and your mess now. You're not out of this town in 3 days. We're gonna blow your brains out and blow up your house." And I heard these things before, but for some reason it started to get to me. Rolled over and tried to get some sleep, but I couldn't sleep. Frustrated, bewildered. So I got up and I went into the kitchen and I started warming some coffee, thinking that coffee would give me a little relief. Then I started thinking about a many things. Pulled back on the philosophy and the theology that I just studied in the universities, trying to give philosophical and theological reasons in existence and reality of sin and evil, but the answer didn't quite come there. Started to think about a beautiful little daughter. She had just been born a month earlier. We have 4 children now, but we only had 1 then. Darling of my life. Come in night after night, and I see that little gentle smile, and I sat there and I stared at that table thinking about that little girl. Thinking about the fact that she could be taken away from me in a moment. Started to think about a beautiful and dedicated wife who was over there asleep. She could be taken from me, or I could be taken from her. And it got to the point that I couldn't take it any longer. I was weak. So I heard something say, "Well, you can't call on Daddy now. He's up in Atlanta, 175 miles away. You can't call on Mama now." You gotta call on that something, that power that your daddy used to tell you about. Power that can make a way out of no way. So I found out that night that religion had to become real, and I had to know God for myself. So I bowed down over that cup of coffee. I never will forget it. Prayed out loud that night. I said, "Lord, I'm down here. Think I'm right. I think the cause that we represent is right. Lord, I must confess that I'm faltering and I'm losing my courage." And at that very moment, I heard an inner voice say to me, "Martin Luther, stand up for justice. stand up for truth, stand up for righteousness, and lo, I will be with you even until the end of the days. I tell you, I saw the lightning flash, and I heard the thunder roar, and I felt sin breakers dashing, trying to conquer my soul. But I heard the voice of Jesus saying, still to fight on. He promised never to leave me. No, not ever to leave me. He promised never to leave me. No, not ever to leave me. No, not ever to leave me. Sometimes I feel discouraged. I don't mind telling you about it this morning, but sometimes I feel discouraged. When I was in Chicago, I felt discouraged. Moving from Mississippi and Alabama and Georgia, I feel discouraged sometimes. Living every day under the constant threat of death, I feel discouraged sometimes. Living every day under constant criticism, even from Negroes, I feel discouraged sometimes. Oh, yes, I feel discouraged. And feel my works in vain. But then the Holy Spirit revives my soul. There is a balm in Gilead to heal the sin-sick soul. There is a balm in Gilead to heal the wounded soul. God bless you. Thank you.
Wow, Darryl. Whoa, 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 whoa. That's incredible.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
You had me sitting up against the back of my seat and just like total awe of what you were doing.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, my video wasn't on. Sorry. Anyway, I was so in awe, you couldn't even see my face. So, Darryl.
Yes.
We've got some comments in the chat. Everybody put some comments in the chat, and if you have watching on YouTube, you can put them in. But a couple of comments from Mary is, "Oh my God, I'm crying, Darryl." And MarshStream says, "Wow, so powerful, fantastic." I think that might be Brian. We were all flattened to our chairs. Kalila, although I hope I'm pronouncing it, that was great. You sounded just like MLK.
Wow, thank you. Thank
you. What did you do to prepare for this in terms of, did you listen to Dr. King? Was this actually a sermon he did, so it was a word for word thing he said?
Absolutely, word for word.
So did you, tell us how you came to be able to portray Dr. King so incredibly well.
That's kind of interesting on how that happened, because it may have been my second year in college, and just out of the blue, the idea popped into my head while I was in a theater company. And we were providing the entertainment for the beauty pageant on campus. It was called the Miss Black Western pageant. I was in a theater group called the Afro-American Players, and we were to present the entertainment. And just out of the blue, I said, why don't I try doing a piece on Dr. King? It's simple as that. And I do believe that, for those that believe, those who believe that the God speaks to us in certain ways. And I think that was a moment. But what I have learned to do is to memorize the music of a person's speech. Every word has a tone to it. If you can memorize that tone, then you can sound like a person. Along with that requires a person to shape their lips and pronounce the words the same way. if I were to deliver any of those speeches using different music, a different tone, then it wouldn't be the same. So like Dr. King's speech, I Have a Dream, starts out with this music. I am happy to join with you today. That's music. I am happy to join with you today. So memorizing, every person has a different music to their speech. Also, Dr. King doesn't move his top lip that much. So he's like, I am delighted to see each of you here today. And we have decided to continue on. So once you memorize a person's music of their voice, you can sound like, and that applies to every single human being. And that's what I learned to do.
Wow. Wow. Okay, now do me. Just kidding. Just kidding.
I'd have to listen to you a little bit longer.
Next time, I want my music on out of your lips.
Okay.
Let's see. Let's see. Gail Shickley says, thank you for your moving portrayal of MLK Jr. You embody the heart and soul of his spirit and the movement of Black Lives Matter. Enriching our lives and culture together, we fight for social justice. Thank you, Gail, because Gail introduced me to you. So you're here because of Gail. So thank you, Gail, and thank you, Darryl.
Thank you.
And Mary Connor says, there's a bomb in Gilead. Beautiful. Your performance will stay with me for a long time, Darryl. Thank you so much for sharing your talent and passion and this marvelous prophet's memory. See you Saturday, because we know you're
wonderful. Good.
So, I mean, so that is, in fact, we have another performer who did an MLK Dr. King piece, Wayne Harris, because he did a piece about a letter from the prison in
Birmingham Jail, yes.
So he's done a piece like that. And I know what he said was that he had a really hard time being able to sound like Dr. King. And you obviously have gotten it over. So I don't know if Wayne's watching right now, but I'm going to make sure he watches this to see what you have to say about doing that. And you've had to learn this sound for like not only Dr. King, but in a few minutes, we're going to do an excerpt from the Mandela piece, but also, what does Frederick Douglass sound like? Tell us what Frederick Douglass sounds like.
My son is over here laughing. Well, we really don't know, but from the descriptions, from the writing, he had a powerful voice. Let's see. The portrayal that I have, or the characterization, is more like, if there's one thing in my life more than another that serves to deepen my conviction of the infernal character of slavery and to feel my heart of loathing, it was the treatment of the slave masters to my grandmother. That's all I can pull off my head right off the top.
I know we didn't prep for this.
Right.
You wanted a journey, you had no expectations. We have a question from Kimberly who says, is there one thing from Dr. King that you use in your life today?
Yes, it's one of the great things that has always stuck in my mind. He said, darkness cannot remove darkness. Only light can remove darkness. Just as um, hate cannot remove hatred. Only love can remove hatred. So I've made that a creed in my life as far as love. He also said something that really sticks in my mind. And he says this in the speech called the drum major instinct, which is the desire to be first. He says, if you want to be great, wonderful. If you want to be number one, wonderful. If you want to be first, marvelous. But be first in love. Be number one in giving. Be great in humanity. That way we all can be great. So those are the things that I live with right there, and the things that truly stay with me. And the one-man show I have entitled Power on Earth, it takes the audience from Frederick Douglass to Marcus Garvey, Thurgood Marshall, Malcolm X to Dr. King. The final words are those words. And that show is called Power on Earth. And it is truly a flagship show of mine. It took 3.5 years, Power on Earth. And that's the overall thing that I want the audience to remember and leave with, and when I deliver the pieces on Dr. King.
Wow. Well, we hope you can do it here someday.
Wonderful.
I have one little obnoxious request, which
Oh,
you
Lord.
do not want to do. But have you done any women?
People ask me that all the time. I haven't done any women, and because I don't think I can really do it that well. Now, I have thought about this because I have a full-line music show as well. It's like a Las Vegas show that takes the audience from Little Richard to Ray Charles, to Sam Cooke, Jerry Lee Lewis, Muddy Waters, Elton John, Lionel Richie. If I was to do a woman, I would put Tina Turner in there.
So I don't suppose you're ready to do a 5-second Tina Turner for
No, not at all. I've never even put any time in it. It's just a thought that I had in my head.
Well, next time if you come on my show, maybe you'll do 5 seconds of Tina Turner.
I'm gonna let you do 5 seconds of it because I know you're an actress as well. I'm gonna let you do some. If you do some, then I would possibly consider.
Okay, if I do some, because I am not really an actress, I'm like an arts administrator, but nonetheless, if you'll do it, I'll go for it too. 5 seconds each. It'll be like a little contest. And I think I know who's going to win, but that's okay. I don't have to be first in this situation.
Okay.
So we want to show a little bit of the show. You're going to do an excerpt from the show you will be performing this weekend on Solo Performer Spotlight. So tell us a little bit about it, and can't wait to hear Nelson Mandela.
Right. The piece Mandela Let Freedom Reign is truly dear to my heart. And the show shows 3 aspects of his life. It shows the life as him as a celebrated lawyer. It shows him in the time that he spent in prison. And it shows the great climactic scene of him as being the president of South Africa. This piece here that I'm going to do a little bit of tonight is so important. It's the part about him as being a lawyer, but it goes into detail on how horrible apartheid was. And I think it's important for people to know that. And I think it will draw them into the piece for this weekend as well. But on another note, the piece Mandela Let Freedom Reign is very, very inspirational. Now, it will definitely take the audience through many peaks and valleys and obstacles. but it comes home with great inspiration. And I think that's important. When everybody leaves that play, they will be empowered and they will be inspired. And my hope is that they too will want to contribute as far as making a change to this world, because things truly are not where they should be, and we're still seem like we're sliding back in time. I chose this piece because of the similarities of apartheid and the similarities to the civil rights movement, and still on the distance that we have to travel. So this piece gives the audience the inside look of what apartheid was really like. Okay?
Okay.
And 1952, I was 34 years old. And we had just opened our law firm, Mandela and Tambo. Now, we were not the only African lawyers in South Africa, but we were the only all-African law firm in South Africa. And every morning, there would be a line of people waiting to come into the office, just like at our doctor's office. And it was a wonderful thing to see the faces on the people, knowing that there was someone there to help them. And it was a time in my life that I was truly happy with the profession that I had chosen. In South Africa, under apartheid, it was a crime to walk under a whites only door. It was a crime to ride on a whites only bus. It was a crime to drink from a whites only water fountain. It was a crime to walk on a whites only beach. It was a crime to be out past 11 o'clock. And it was a crime to be employed at the wrong place. And it was a crime not to be employed at all. And it was a crime to live in the wrong place. And it was a crime not to have a place to live at all. It was a crime not to have your passbook. And it was a crime not to have the right signatures in your passbook. I started to work with the ANC, which was the African National Congress, which was the oldest organization in fighting for equality for the Africans people. In 1955, the ANC launched what was called the Freedom Charter. This Freedom Charter was a great beacon in the fight for South Africans. It was a lot like the Americans' Declaration of Independence. It called for a free and a non-racial democratic society. And it stated that all other people would share in the profit, in the wealth of the country. I was truly instrumental in its development. The very next year, in 1956, the South African government arrested 156 members of the developers of the Freedom Charter, including myself. This here was very, very serious charge that they put upon us, stating it was treason and that we were trying to overthrow the government. This tedious treason trial went on for 44.5 years. While this trial was going on, the South African government released what was called the passbook system. This passbook system truly represented what was apartheid was. It was a philosophy going back as far as the early 1700s by the white slave owners attempting to control their slaves. We had to carry these passbooks because we were not citizens in our own country. Once you turn 16 years old, you would have to have this passbook. Inside this passbook, it will be a Polaroid photograph. It would be poll taxes. Any criminal activity that you may have involved in would be included in this here passbook. Also, you would have to have your employee to sign this passbook every month. And if you did not have any of these, if any of these things were incorrect, then you could go to prison. There have been many people that were sent to prison and never to be seen again. If you had a person who wanted to come and visit you, you would have to go to the local police precinct and inform them that you have a visitor coming. They would decide how long your visitor would stay in your house. On national television, this is what I did with my passbook. I burned it for the world to see.
Well, that, Darryl, deep, also stunning. And everyone, we're not going to talk a lot about it now because you're going to do it on Saturday and we'll have a Q&A. So hopefully everyone here will come watch this on Saturday. And we're kind of running out of time. Darryl Van Leer, thank you for everyone for joining us tonight at MarshStream. Consider making a tip. Tell all your friends about this wonderful show coming up this weekend. And I will see you soon, Mr. Darryl Van Leer. Have a great couple of days until then.